Yo, what is going on, guys? Tony here, coming at you with another Dead by Daylight video. In this one, we're still on the public test build, but what we're going to be doing is actually discussing some of the perks that I think are really good to be ran with the new killer. This way you guys can kind of know if you're just not sure of what perks to run, or maybe once the killer goes live, you know what perks to kind of pick up. I know the Legion is not exactly very strong at the moment and probably will need a buff, kind of similarly, I think how Spirit got buffed after she was released, but that's a different discussion for a different video potentially. But basically what I'm going to do is I was just going to go through each perk that a killer can actually take and discuss kind of why they think that it would be good on Legion or why you probably shouldn't take it. And then I'll show you a couple builds at the end that I think are pretty good and you might have some success with. So the first perk, Nurse's Calling. I think Nurse's Calling is a really, really good perk on the Legion. Basically, you see auras of survivors who are healing within a 28-meter range, and even if they're taking distortion, if they're still going to be healing, like, it'll eat up their distortion stacks, because I've had that happen to me to where it'll just run out through all my 3 distortion stacks if a killer is still within that 28-meter range potentially. So if you see that though, as a survivor, you would need to run away instantly. If you're not paying attention, it could eat all your distortion stacks. And another thing that the Legion is always hitting people and always injuring them, usually hitting multiple people in a chase. So Nurse is going to be really cool for you to pick up on them after it. Now, I think the next perk, Agitation, could be a decent one to run as well. I wouldn't say it's like top tier, but there's a pretty cool build that I want to show at the end of this that I think would be pretty fun to run. But Agitation is just okay because you can transport them, you know, faster while they're on your shoulders. All right, guys, Barbecue and Chili. Obviously, people know that this is a really good perk, just in general. It makes it a little bit harder when distortion is a thing, but there's also a cool little combination you could run now as well. Slightly, Barbecue's nerfed a little bit because of the lockers update that happened, which basically your auras are hidden when you hide in a locker, so Barbecue is a little bit less useful there, but it's still a strong perk because not everyone is hiding in lockers, and you can also do a nice little perk combination with this if you want to do something that's kind of funny, but Barbecue is always a good choice. Bitter Murmur just comes down to, like, it's an okay perk, you know, seeing the survivors' auras when a gen's finished, but I don't think it's at the top of the list, and you probably wouldn't want it in, like, your main builds if you're running. Blood Warden is an interesting one. I think it might be okay. I don't think it's going to be, like, super, super strong, but Blood Warden plus maybe, like, Remember Me could be really good as the Legion, because you're going to get most of your Remember Me stacks off, and then, you know, a lot of times I see people basically on the PTB, just the Legion gets gen rushed, honestly, and Blood Warden might at least help you at the end if people are trying to escape. You can get many resets on your stabs in Frenzy when going up against it, so it might be an actual decent perk for you guys to try out. Bloodhound, I think, is a pretty decent perk for the Legion, just because the fresh blood marks are considerably more discernible and can be tracked for 4 seconds longer than normal. You're always going to be hitting new survivors, and they're going to mend themselves. You're going to go back, you're going to re-hit them again. They're going to be constantly bleeding everywhere, so being able to track them easier with Bloodhound might be a pretty nice perk for you to run. Brutal Strength, I think, is not good to run on this character, because the whole concept of Feral Frenzy is being able to, you know, vault over windows and pallets pretty quickly. There's even an add-on for the killer that doesn't let you break pallets, so that's kind of not the whole character's, like, play style, so having Brutal Strength on just seems a little bit counterintuitive. Next perk is Calorophobia, and I think it could be okay when paired with something like Sloppy Butcher, maybe like Distressing or something. So basically, survivors within your terror radius have 50% penalty to healing progress speed, and everyone has to mend, and then everyone has to heal, so when you have that, you know, longer, I guess, if you have a bigger terror radius with this, it'll help out pretty decent. I don't think it's like a super great build to run, but it might be kind of fun if you want to run an anti-heal build. And then, like I just mentioned with Calorophobia, Distressing, increasing your terror radius by 26%, which will help out if you're running anything like the perk I just mentioned, that if you need the terror radius to be near, and just all of the, you know, just time just makes people feel really paranoid about this killer. Dying Light, I don't think that Dying Light is a great perk to run. I mean, obviously, if you can tunnel your obsession, I think this killer can tunnel relatively well and get the kill. They have a penalty to repair, healing, and sabotage, which the repair and healing basically penalty is pretty good to have, but I don't find too many people dying very quickly when going up against this killer, so it might not be the best one to run. So I probably would stay away from it. Now, I recently had this happen to me, and I actually think Franklin's is a pretty solid perk to run, because the Feral Frenzy hits will proc Franklin's, and it'll just cause people to drop their items. And if you can hit a few people right from the get-go and they don't remember to pick up their items, or they can't pick up their items, you're going to instantly remove those off the playing field. That's a really actually good perk to run on this character. Now, Devour Hope, I don't think really any of the exposed status perks are that great to run on this killer, just because most of the stuff's through the frenzy and it's not a normal hit. You're not just normally chasing people around. So I would probably stay away from any exposed perks, but you could try to take Devour Hope if you really want. You still get, you know, a little bit of a haste bonus after hooking the survivor and whatnot, but I probably would stay away from it. Again, just like Devour Hope, Haunted Ground, it still gives you a exposed status. It's probably not the best hex to take. I think there's other ones that you would want to take besides this. Haunted Ground's an okay hex to take anyways, just in case if you pair it with something else, just so it kind of makes the survivors kind of not wanting to bust your totems because they don't want to be exposed. So I still probably wouldn't take it though if I was coming down to making a build. Huntress Lullaby, I just think isn't that great in general. Basically just when it puts the skill check quicker, basically, and they have a more regression penalty when they miss a skill check. I don't think it's that great, honestly. I don't see why too many people actually run this unless you run like a, you know, Huntress Lullaby plus Unnerving Presence or something. I think that would be a decent build, but I don't know if that's the right one to use for the Legion. And then Noed, I don't find Noed to be that great on this killer either, which is kind of, as a survivor main player, that's pretty good for me to say, but obviously you don't get much out of Noed because a lot of the times you're going to get outran, and if you're in your frenzy, the stun time really gives people a lot of time to get out of the door. If you're chasing them to the door in frenzy, and if you cancel it because you want to try to get a hit in, they're most likely just gonna be able to get out because of the stun duration. So I wouldn't run Noed. Next perk is Ruin. I would take Ruin. Honestly, as a hex, it's probably the best one to run because this guy seems to get gen rushed to fuck. It appears, because not everyone's going down. It's just like a lot of deep wounds are happening. So if you're able to stop the gen rush on this character, it might help you out by a lot. And then Hex the Third Seal, I don't think is that great to run on this character. Just the Third Seal is not that amazing in general. Just it's really dependent on certain builds that you're running and certain characters with add-ons. So I probably wouldn't run it on the Legion. Insidious is very counterintuitive to what the character is. You just run around the map, and Insidious makes you not run around the map, so wouldn't take this perk. So Iron Maiden is a pretty interesting perk. I don't think it's great, but I think it's kind of interesting maybe once people start hiding in lockers more to try to block the barbecue aura, getting them exposed for 15 seconds and their location being revealed. That is kind of a risk reward, so honestly taking Iron Maiden with barbecue might be a pretty solid perk setup. Lightborn, I don't really think is that essential to take because a lot of the times pallets aren't being broken and you're not going to be like in a situation in which getting blind except for when like picking a survivor up. So I don't think Lightborn is a great perk to take for this killer because I find that I don't think I've seen too many people even get a blind on the Legion yet, so I probably wouldn't waste the slot on this. Now we've got my favorite perk, Mad Grit, aka Mad Shit, which is basically when carrying the survivor, if you hit a survivor while someone's on your shoulders, it pauses the wiggle timer for 4 seconds, and you have no cooldowns for missed attacks. But I don't think it's that great. You can make some pretty funny builds with it though, and I think ones that actually might even be effective, but I probably wouldn't take it if you're just going for a standard build. Again, Make Your Choice is still a good perk because people are going for saves and whatnot, but honestly, people escape very frequently against this killer. In its current state, I don't think that Make Your Choice is going to be a great one for you to take because you're not really just hitting people normally, you know, because it's probably a healthy survivor that's unhooking, and you're not just going to be able to get up to that survivor and just hit them down once, so I would avoid taking Make Your Choice. Monitor seems to be a perk that almost 95% of people are taking on this character. Having this terror radius increased by 8 meters and having it reduced by 8 meters, which is really, really good. The terror radius on this killer is insane as it is. Plus, you know, there's other different types of perks you can run. You can run like Distressing, and there's also like the Iridescent button offering that you can take on this. Monitor is insane, and it's constantly putting you on edge because you think that the killer is going to be on you, and it's much harder to see your screen during a deep wound. So it's always making me very paranoid, even though the killer is often left the chase with me and went on to someone else, I still think they're behind me. So it's a really, really good perk to take. Monstrous Shrine, I don't think I need to discuss this one. It's not a great perk. Probably shouldn't take it. Moving on then. Overcharge. Basically, when you damage the gen, they get a tremendously difficult skill check. It's an okay perk, just in general, but I'd say there's just way more perks that are stronger than it, so I probably wouldn't take Overcharge on this build. Play with your food. I'm not exactly sure if it increases frenzy move speed when you get the obsession or just normal move speed, but anytime you chase your obsession and let them escape, that's pretty easy to do with this character given their special ability. So if it increases your movement speed of Feral Frenzy, it might be pretty nice, but I don't think it's a super great perk to take. It's probably just okay. And if it doesn't do any to the Feral Frenzy, I probably just wouldn't take it at all. I've also seen people take some Pop Goes the Weasel. Basically, the next generator you break after hooking survivors instantly regress by 25%. Again, this is going to help with the gen rush that people seem to do against this killer. And if you run maybe Ruin as well with Pop Goes the Weasel, you might get some pretty good damage off onto gens and kind of stop them from rushing you and being able to try to escape. So it's an interesting perk to take. I don't think it's top tier for this killer, but I think it's an interesting choice based on a build you make. Rancor is a pretty alright perk, honestly. You being able to see the obsession, but again, for this, I believe that Distortion still counters Rancor. If all generators are actually done, then I think they'd just see him for the last two generators, Rancor would. So, it still gives you the exposed status and you can kill your obsession. So it's that, in that sense, it's good, but you might not get much use out of it early on in the game. And a lot of these games seem to end quickly, so you might be able to get your obsession and get a kill on it, but it's up to you on this one. I still think it's kind of like a middle of the pack perk to take. I think Remember Me is really strong on Legion. It's really easy to hit your obsession 6 times for the maximum of 30 additional seconds. I had this happen in the game that I uploaded with Jeff, and 50-second door opening time is not great. And then I said again, if you have like Blood Warden, so 50 seconds of that and then an additional minute of the thing being blocked off is a very, very long time in the world of Dead by Daylight. So pairing this perk with some other things is actually quite strong, and I think Remember Me is super easy to gain your stacks as well. Save the Best for Last seems like a pretty good perk to run as well, because every successful hit that is not on the obsession, you're going to be getting all of these attack cooldowns and earning your tokens. And being in Frenzy, you're going to be able to hit sometimes the same survivor twice, multiple different survivors, resetting your cooldowns. It's quite good because you'll be able to stack up these tokens pretty darn quickly if you're able to avoid your obsession. And even if you do hit your obsession and lose some of those tokens, you're probably going to be able to get them back up pretty quickly. Shadowborn, it's just okay, right? Your view's wider than normal. Probably don't take it. Spies from the Shadows. I don't think anyone's taken Spies from the Shadows since the first month that the game has came out. Surveillance is, again, not a great perk. Probably would not take this just in general on anybody. Territorial Imperative is just, if you're really paranoid about the basement, I guess go ahead, but it's probably not a great use of a perk slot. I've seen a lot of people taking Thanatophobia on this killer because it's pretty easy to get all 4 stacks and have the reduced action speed. But honestly, I just think the Thanatophobia is pretty weak as a perk in general. The 15% action speed still doesn't seem like it does that much, so I don't think it's that great. Tinkerer would be okay, but I think with like perks like Distortion is kind of making that not that great. Maybe right when the killer comes out, maybe having Tinkerer on would be pretty good. Being able to see people, you get the notification and your terror radius is reduced, and you're probably going to be able to just like get close to that area and then go into your Feral Frenzy and potentially hit people. So Tinkerer might be an okay perk, but there are becoming more ways to counter it. Now, an Unrelenting I wouldn't take just because your normal missed attacks are probably not going to be that used that much, and even if it works on Frenzy, it's still pretty darn easy to hit that attacks and get multiple swings off with Frenzy. So if you miss your first Frenzy attack, the cooldown for that is already super small, so you'll have no need really to take Unrelenting. Whispers is a perk that a lot of people take just in general, I find. If this is something that you like, go ahead and take it. I personally am not a fan of Whispers, but because it's pretty easy to hear people, especially once you get them injured. so I don't think you really need to have whispers because a lot of people are already injured and moaning like crazy. Bamboozle would be kind of cool in theory, but I really think Bamboozle is just good for killers who can get looped pretty easily. This is not one of those killers. If you could potentially block off a vaulted pallet, that would be pretty cool, but you can't. So Bamboozle kind of seems not worth it because you can already hop over a window super quickly and keep your chase up. There's no need, because if you had trouble with like getting looped around like Killer Shack or something, I would say probably take it, but in this instance, I just don't think it's a good perk. Beast of Prey, it's a yikes perk. Just don't take it. Just, there's no need. You can run Deerstalker. Obviously, it's just an okay perk if you want to slug people and just try to get the most out of getting people down. If you still have a bunch of people injured and you want to and you get someone down and you want to go try to find the other people, maybe you have nurses with it, you can use Deerstalker, but it's a middle of the ground perk. It's all right to use. I think Discordance is actually a pretty decent perk. Anytime two survivors or more working on the same gen, the gen's aura is highlighted, so distortion is not affected by this. So they still will have stacks of that, but at least you'll know like where that gen is. So they're not going to be hidden. Like their auras are hidden because it's not going to show it theirs directly, but at least you'll be able to see like what gens are getting worked on. So I think Discordance is actually not that bad of a perk. Enduring can be something that's used, if in case you get stunned by pallets or whatnot, but a lot of people just kind of sit and wait for the pallets to be thrown down before they use their frenzy and try to vault over them. So it's not like you get stunned too frequently as the Legion. Fire Up is an interesting one. I'm not too sure how like it works while in the frenzy, or if it's just like normal vaulting and everything. If you're going to be like freaking an Olympic hurdler going over windows and pallets, I'm not exactly sure. It seems really interesting, and I would like to try it myself, and I haven't yet to do so. But like I said, people are gen rushing this character, so you might be able to get these tokens really, really quickly and be able to move extra fast while going around the map, which would be pretty interesting. Hangman's Trick is a funny perk that I thought would be, in case people just wanted to run Breakdown, the Hangman's Trick would just automatically deploy it up after 10 seconds. If Breakdown becomes a meta perk, maybe we see Hangman's Trick, but at this point, I'd say it's not even worth it to do it. There's too many hooks on the map as there is, and you can probably find yourself, another place to hook someone. Thrill the Hunt could be an interesting one to run with like Ruin, so you can see when people are on your totems and you can just instantly frenzy over and kind of knock them off. I think this would be an interesting one to take, and I would say probably would be the second best hex to take besides Ruin. Iron Grasp, just in case you want people to not wiggle when you're going on there, it's an okay perk. There's definitely ones that I think are slightly better than Iron Grasp, because a lot of the times you'll be in the vicinity of a hook, but just in case, if you feel like you won't be able to or something, if you go up like against the Survive with Friends, then go ahead and take Iron Grasp. Now, I actually had a Legion use Knockout against me and my friend when we were playing, and it's actually pretty good. So they would kind of get someone down, use Knockout, and then immediately go on the chase with anyone else. So they would like first use their frenzy, hit a couple people, and then find someone else, get them down, and then we would have no idea because everyone's trying to run away and mend. The best way to play against the Legion is to be spread out. And if you're not close together, you might not be able to pick up your person. So it makes it actually a pretty decent perk to run. I would say Knockout's actually kind of slept on. Overwhelming Presence, I guess if you have people in your terror radius that it's just not... I mean, I guess you could use maybe the iridescent button. If someone like gets hit to where your terror radius goes the entire map, to make it so like other survivors, it's hard for them to use items or something to heal. But I don't think it's that great of a choice. Predator, just not a good perk. The scratch marks don't even like show up after you're in frenzy or like while you're in frenzy, so I wouldn't pick this at all. Sloppy Butcher is another perk that a lot of people seem to be taking. Just in general, you get people hit, Sloppy Butcher, they have to first mend themselves and then heal with the Sloppy Butcher stacks on there, which is going to take them ages. So it's a really good perk to take. So Spirit Fury, I don't think's that great because again, you're not going to be breaking pallets, so there's no need to really take it if you're not going to be doing that action. Strider, I've also seen a lot of people been taking, is basically the survivor pain is 50% louder and regular breathing is 25% louder. Yo, if you have some games with if you see that your lobby has Jeffs, like a lot of Jeffs, take Strider. Holy crap, this dude's breathing is the loudest I've ever heard in general. So having it just 25% louder and the pain 50% louder, you probably hear this dude screams across the entire map. You probably hear him in different games from ones that you aren't already in. So in certain instances, I think Strider's actually not too bad of a perk to take. Unnerving Presence is an okay perk. I don't think it's that great. Certain instances with certain builds would be kind of, give or take what you want to use. I don't think it's super great though, and you probably shouldn't look at it as like a first choice when trying to put it on your list. If you want to make a build with it, revolving around it or something, that would be kind of cool, but I wouldn't say it's that great. All right, guys, so this is the first build we're looking at, and this is what a large majority of people are running. A lot of the bigger streamers have ran this, a lot of, just higher level players and people that I've gone up against as well. Not saying I'm great, but I am like rank 1, so I do have a little bit of experience seeing people. Nurse's Calling is really good. It kind of negates out distortion after a while, and it's just good because most people are going to be hurt always. Ruin, obviously slow the game down just a little bit because he gets obviously gen rushed quite a bit. Monitor and Abuse, like I said, the terror radius thing is actually insane on this killer because he's constantly moving around the map and usually always in chases. And then Sloppy Butcher for the slow heals and everything. This kind of seems to be the best standardized build that people are taking currently. So this build is an interesting one. It's kind of more if you go up against like a Survive with Friends. So the first thing that you're going to have on it is, so you have Discordance basically, because when it's Survive with Friends, multiple people are usually working on gens together, so you're going to be able to see them. But the real thing about this is when you actually get a survivor down on the ground is you're going to have Mad Grit. So basically missed attacks have no cooldown, and successfully hitting another survivor pauses this survivor's wiggle for 4 seconds. And then Iron Grasp, so the wiggle is much harder, and then Agitation, so you can move faster. Basically, if you're going up against Survive with Friends, it's basically going to make body blocking almost impossible. And it's a pretty funny build to run, and I think would actually be kind of hilarious to see. All right, guys, this is an interesting build. It's like a late game build, but it allows you to kind of, I guess, tunnel in a sense at the very end, because you want to be able to get your Blood Warden to be working. So basically, what we're running is, the first thing that I just want to point out is Remember Me. So it's really easy to get with the Legion. You just have to stab your Obsession 6 times to get the 30 seconds for the door. And then, basically, we're using perks like Strider and Bloodhound, so you can more easily track people towards the end of the game. Like when the exit gates are trying to get open, it's going to take you a very long time, but if they get open, you'll see their auras, and maybe you're able to down someone. You throw them on a hook, and then Blood Warden's activated, and it just kind of slows down the whole process a lot. It might not be the greatest build, but I think it's an interesting one that I kind of want to try myself once I have the all the perks for it. Now, the second to last build I want to show that you could possibly run would be something like Franklin's, so you can get their items down and, put them into that state. And then Barbecue and Chili. And the Barbecue and Chili plus Iron Maiden combo is really what I'm looking at on this perk. Basically, you put the Barbecue and Chili on there if people attempt to hide from the stacks during in lockers, in case they aren't using distortion as a perk. As soon as they exit that locker, you're going to know they're going to be exposed to you for 15 seconds, and their location will be revealed for 4 seconds. So you can kind of use that to your advantage, and then also just having Nurse's Calling, having to know like when they're healing. Maybe they exit a locker and you don't find them in time, but maybe they were already injured and they're healing, and you might be able to find them after that if you still head in that direction. All right, and finally, this is the last perk build I'm going to show. I consider it to be the anti-heal build, where you run essentially nurses, which I said again is really, really strong. Most of these builds have nurses on them. Sloppy, obviously, to make the healing slower and to suffer from the mangled status effect. And then have Chlorophobia, which basically your presence alone instills the fear. So basically, people in the terror radius have a 50% penalty to healing, so that will stack on top of Sloppy. And then Distressing to make that terror radius even larger. So, being away from people who are still injured and might be trying to heal themselves, it's going to take an actual crazy amount of time, and you'll be able to probably see them too with your nurses. You'll probably be in that range once that actually happens. And it's just going to be really, really hard for them to try to heal themselves to full. So I know this video is going to be probably a little bit longer, and I didn't really show any gameplay, but I just kind of wanted to discuss the perks, because a lot of people I feel have not been running, at least in my games, like really adequate perks on this character, and I think it's kind of hurting them. Some people are running some decent perks and are doing quite well, but I still think the character is pretty weak and will probably need some changes. However, I consider them to be fun, so I enjoyed making this because I want to try some funny builds and see what works for me. So if you guys enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.